Hey Mixer, Graham here from therecordingrevolution.com. And this is a series that's going to show you all the basics of how to mix a song using a variety of Waves plugins. And in this video in particular, we're looking at the bass. How can you take a DI'd bass that sounds okay and turn it into a fat, full, larger-than-life, mix-ready bass performance? Here's what I have so far with the bass and drums. Okay, good performance, but very typical lifeless DI'd bass sound. Fortunately for us, there's a few plugins that we can use to really make this pop. One of my favorites is R-Bass, Renaissance Bass. This thing is amazing. It uses the Max Bass technology, if you've ever used Max Bass as a plugin by itself, that adds harmonics. And so it's adding something to the bass, and it's so simple to get a good sound. You can zero in on the frequency you want. I left it at the default 80 hertz is a great place to start. You just bring up the intensity knob a little bit till you're getting some of that fuller sound, and then you can obviously turn down the gain if the whole bass is getting a little too loud. Listen to what this thing does. It's going to add fullness in one click. Amazing. This thing is like magic. So it adds those harmonics that fill out the sound for you instantly. Now, one thing was lost a little bit actually by adding these harmonics. That took up most of the sound and it felt like it muted some of the clarity that he had in the plucking. So that's where I brought in the Renaissance EQ to kind of clean up the sound now a little bit and enhance it a little bit more. So I've taken out a couple of things. I've taken out some at 50 hertz, a little notch at 50 hertz. Why? Well, if you saw the drum video, that's where I made a boost on the kick drum. So I wanted to actually carve out a little bit of space here on the bass guitar to leave room for the kick. It's a little tip for you. Then I've got a little bit of a cut at 440. This is going to clean up some of the mud that's not so pleasing after I've enhanced the harmonics there with R-Bass. And then what I wanted to bring back was the clarity in the top end. This is sort of the plucking of the bass that's really nice in the mix. It also helps the bass cut through on small speakers. And I've done this boost here at 2.8. Take a listen to what this EQ does. Yeah, much more clear, much more forward. I like that a lot. It brings back what I liked about the bass sound originally, and only it adds that to the now fuller Renaissance bass. And one final move here is some compression. Compression on bass is your best friend because it brings out the sustain. When you pluck the bass, it sounds nice and full in the moment, but then it dies off in the tail. And what we like about bass is the full sustain of it. So if you have an electric bass that was played by a human, it's going to need some compression, I think, to fill out that sound immensely. So grab a compressor to fill out that sustain, and one of the easiest ones to use is Renaissance Axe. This one is perfect for guitars and bass. The initial settings are great, but I reached for a preset called Plucky, and what it's got is a fast enough attack to really clamp down a little bit on the transient, and then all I do is dial down the threshold till I get the fatness I'm looking for. Beautiful. Now let's take away all three of these. The Renaissance bass, which remember was adding the harmonics that really filled out the sound. The Renaissance EQ, which is in cleaning up the sound a bit and then bringing back the clarity and the plucking in the top end. And then the Renaissance Axe, which is a nice compressor to fill out the sound, give us that sustain we want that makes the bass sound fatter. Here we go. Amazing. Let's bring in the drums and see what happens when we take away those plugins. much fuller, much fatter, much more contained, much more in your face. That's the way to get a bass sounding fat using 3 amazing plugins. Now that's it for now. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to get your guitars and synths and keyboards and all those mid-range instruments to have clarity and width and life in your mix.